And hello there and welcome to AM Prime here on WESN Content Capital. Friday here in Trinidad. I think the weekend brings a sigh of relief to everyone, including myself. I don't have to wake up 4 o'clock tomorrow morning. But anyway, it's always a pleasure to sit here and to start the morning with you. And thank you very much for joining me. My first conversation surrounds natural disasters. Well, if you'd like to refer to it as that. I mean, flooding is something that is caused by both man and at times, yes, because of natural disasters, whether it be through hurricanes, tornadoes, or just generally very heavy rain. But just to brief you actually on the discussion this morning, there was a study that was conducted by Dr. Ronald Rupnerine in 2018, and his research in 2018 found that damage and losses from flooding in the years 1993, 2002, and 2006 were US $580,000 or 4 million TT, US $3.3 million or TT 22.4 million, and US 2.5 million or TT 17 million, respectively. That's over the course of 1993, 2002, and 2006. Dr. Rupnerine, in October 2018, the International Federation of the Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies reported an estimated 150,000 people from 4,100 households were impacted, and approximately 75% of farmers in the country were severely affected through the loss of crops and livestock. Well, to have a discussion about flooding here in TNT and how crucial early warning systems are, I am joined by Mr. Stefan Afonso. He's a project manager at the United Nations Development Program. He's with us via Zoom this morning. Good morning, Mr. Afonso, and thank you very much for joining me.
Hi, good morning, Kitan. Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago.
I would like to ask, the early systems warnings, especially for a small island developing state such as Trinidad and Tobago, how crucial is such a system?
Flood early warning systems are crucial. Doesn't begin to really express the severity and the importance and the need for this type of system. The system already exists in Trinidad, and what we've been working on is strengthening and improving, enhancing the impact and the productivity or the efficiency of the system. As you mentioned before, the quotations and the references by Dr. Rupnerine, the impact of floods on Trinidad and Tobago costs us millions, either directly in terms of losses, loss of life, loss of crops, loss of stock, loss of livestock, but also in terms of the productivity, the loss in man hours, the traffic, the difficulties, or the fact that we have to find alternate routes to get home, to get to work, or even the delays that we have from cleanup, the impact that it has on our friends, our colleagues, our neighbors. There's a ripple effect when it comes to flooding, and that means that there's no pun intended. But the significance of this early warning system is really to improve the response of the coordinating agencies or response agencies as it relates to hazard impacts, and also for individuals, communities, and this really comes down to an individual effort to be able to respond or to understand the alerts, the warnings, the messages that are coming out from the respective government agencies, the state-sanctioned agencies that have the authority to be able to issue these alerts, so that people can put things in place, or people can evacuate or take necessary measures, whether it's anticipatory actions, preferably anticipatory actions, because anticipatory actions focus on pre-hazard impact, as opposed to response or recovery. Response is immediately after the event, or recovery is shorter to medium, possibly longer term. But we haven't really had that experience in Trinidad, except really on an infrastructural side, where you see that the impact of floods lead to recovery efforts because of the the depth and the degree of the impact of the flood. So when it collapses a road and the government is required then to intervene and put in something like a Bailey Bridge, that's more into the response and recovery effort. But the focus of this project has been the community flood early warning system. So focusing on that community side of it is where we've really placed emphasis on the human element, on the individual elements within the community. Sure.
Before we get further into the community aspect of this conversation, if we were to try to assess what are the root causes of flooding here in TNT, what would be the very first things that we think of, whether it be our tropical climate, our low-lying plains, our geographical location? What would you say are the root causes of flood?
There are a number of causes, and I would leave that really for the experts. So, as you would have referenced, Dr. Rupnarayan, and even in that, there was a recent op-ed issued in the newspapers in the Newsday referencing Dr. Maiku, or is it Professor Maiku? My apologies if it's Professor. That there are multiple causes that lead to flooding in Trinidad and Tobago, and it's not solely based on our geographical terrain or topographical approach, but really there are a number of factors which include developmental issues, socioeconomic issues, social issues, cultural issues. So just to pinpoint it as to one particular element that plays more than the others, I'm not in a position to really explain that or to say that, but there are a number of factors.
Well, I think Professor Michelle Maiku, yes, you're absolutely correct. As she pointed out our history of land tenure issues, and she even shared some statistics saying that approximately 55,000 households occupy state lands, while an additional 3,000 households are on private lands in similar areas. And she says that because of this squatting, ecologically, our fragile soils also contribute in a major way to flooding. But moving on, you know, I know you said let's not get too much into every single cause because there's so many. But if we were to use Professor Maiku's her research and her study, why does it seem to be that from a socioeconomic perspective, flood-prone areas are attractive for building?
That's a very good question, and I think that Professor Maiku may be better positioned to answer that question.
No, that's absolutely fine. So
she's done the research, so I think it's only fair that she be given the opportunity to respond to that type of question.
Fair enough. Moving forward now, let's speak about the UNDP's efforts here in Trinidad and Tobago with regards to the early warning system. You did mention earlier that as such is already in place. Could you speak more onto the systems in place here in TNT?
Sure. Thanks, Kitan. Under this project, we've expanded the existing infrastructure for monitoring the rise and falls of riverine levels. So this project focuses on the riverine level gauges, stream gauges. 7 were installed across Trinidad and Tobago. The Tobago sites were Bacolod and Crooks River, and the Trinidad sites were Digger Martin, Port of Spain, Maraval, Hoover, Cunupia, and Papuri in Aldebe. So that's one side of it in terms of the equipment. Then there's the monitoring side of it, which includes what the Resources Agency has something called a data portal, where all this information across the it's by the end of, or in the near future, in coming weeks, it should be about 29 sites, 29 stream gauges that are fully operational. They would be pulling the data from these stream gauges. So you may notice that there was over the past few months, an infographic coming from the Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government demonstrating the riverine gauges, and it's been quite a very useful tool in presenting the information from the stream gauges to the public. And this infographic provides the river levels or the estimated river levels across where the stream gauges are installed, which include the 7 stream gauges under this project.
Mm-hmm.
So this equipment, combined with the training from the community emergency response training, in addition to the other equipment, a high-speed computer that was used or that's being used to create and develop flood models specific to communities that are frequently impacted by flooding, these are some of the key elements of the community flood early warning systems project.
Mm-hmm. So you've spoken to what this project encompasses, but a big question that, I mean, all of us might be wondering is, what is this going to cost Trinidad and Tobago? It's something that is necessary, as you've pointed out. But in terms of cost, have we received funding for such, or is it a cost being incurred by TNT?
This project has been fully funded by the European Commission for Humanitarian Aid Operations, ECHO, at a cost of €400,000, just about 3 million TT.
Mm-hmm. And
so the investment by the, that's it. So the investment on the project has been made by ECHO.
Mm-hmm. And in TNT, you mentioned earlier the community, which suggests that it goes beyond just the government, businesses, residents, all involved in trying to mitigate the risks associated with flooding. Is there ample opportunity here in TNT to try and prevent such from taking place?
Of course, there is ample opportunity, but I wouldn't want to preempt a conversation between the government in terms of and private partnerships or private organizations to explore the opportunities that exist for investing in early warning systems beyond just flooding, but in multi-hazard early warning systems. Mm-hmm. So to answer your question, I would say yes, definitely. Certainly there is room and ample room for investment in early warning systems and building our individual, or most of our community resilience and organizational resilience across Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we go about achieving such, building organizational and community resilience?
There are a number of ways. The business continuity planning. The ODPM has multiple resources as it relates to individual and community resilience. Their response plans, their backup plans, they frequently send out circular on their social media pages for individuals to have simple things like evacuation plans or evacuation bags, grab-and-go bags as they refer to it. So from an individual point of view, there are multiple resources across the various agencies that are available to guide individuals to understand what they can do and how they can contribute to their own individual resilience. As it relates to organizational planning, there are multiple tools, which include business continuity planning, which was pretty popular during the pandemic because the pandemic had shifted everything for people. And there was a need and an urgent need to be able to understand or to be able to continue to operate at an efficient rate so that they could continue their existence or continue their competitiveness, their presence in the market, the respective markets that they were in. Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to go too much into what organizations can do, but there are resources outside there that can guide organizations to strengthen their resilience. But I would also add that there's also support from the various ministries or from across agencies. So there's an intergovernmental collaboration. So the Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government, for instance, provides support sandbags if it is that an area or a ministry or an organization, as it's occurred in Port of Spain, an organization is going to be flooded. The ministry is known, the Port of Spain City Corporation has been known to provide support to companies, agencies, with providing sandbags.
Mm-hmm. Now, we've spoken a lot with respect to, the opportunity that early flood warning systems actually allow for. But one of the areas that needs greater focus, I'm wondering if you could expand on it, is how is it impactful in terms of farming and food security?
It's quite impactful because there's collaboration between the, as I mentioned, the agencies, Water Resources Agency, and the various ministries that are given access and provided with the information on the data portal. Now, as it relates to the practices of the individual farmers, I'm not in a position to speak on that, either individually or collectively, because those are practices that go beyond the remit of this project.
So early flood warning systems here in TNT, yes, you can have all these systems in place, but we can safely suggest, I mean, you just mentioned, we can't go too much into the practices specifically of one farm or group of farmers, but everybody needs to do their part with regards to ensuring that their practices are rather proactive rather than systems always having to do its part. So everybody, as we've mentioned, is very much important in the rule of trying to prevent the situations from occurring, costly situations, because the statistics at the beginning of the interview suggested it continues to go up every year. Millions and millions of TT dollars are spent or lost, actually. So this early flood warning system is important. You said it's already in place. If we could just clarify that.
Yeah, I can confirm that this is already in place. This was infrastructure that existed before this project, and this project sought to expand the existing infrastructure of the Water Resources Agency.
How do we assess whether or not it's working?
That's a very good question to ask. So the impact of it, in terms of it working, how do you assess it? That really is based on how much you want to be able to access the information. So the information is there. As I mentioned, the infographic from Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government, the infographics that are shared, the messages that come from Trinidad and Tobago Met Services. These are all elements of early warning because these tend to come before the event. So if you look at early warning, messages come out early. We get alerts, there's a common alert protocol from the Trinidad and Tobago Met Services that provides watches, warnings, alerts, tells you the risk. So you see that matrix box that has the different colors, green, yellow, red, orange. Those are early warning indicators. Those are early warning messages. It may not come in the context, or it may not come in the format of an SMS message or a WhatsApp message or an email, but those are all elements that will be worked towards and that we're working towards. So for instance, the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Management has their PANS, the Public Alert Notification System. This is part of the early warning system of messaging individuals. So to assess its impact, I would say that the messages are there. The messages are coming out, and it's been quite successful in being able to reach individuals across Trinidad and Tobago to inform them, to alert them, to give them the information of there's an early warning impact, or there's a hazard impact that's coming, or that there's a potential, or even when the hazard impact is occurring, the frequency of these notifications and these infographics becomes more and more frequent. It increases so that you get almost an hourly or 2 hour or 3 hour gap in between these updates so that you have that constant update of information from reliable, credible sources.
Mr. Afonso, my final question to you this morning, sir, with regard to flooding, even if we have these systems in place, and even if everybody plays their part and their role to the best of their ability, flooding will always exist?
I feel like that's a loaded question. The reality is that the Flood Early Warning Systems project does not prevent flooding. It provides persons with an opportunity to know when there's going to be flooding so that they can take appropriate actions. As it relates to flooding, I go back to an anecdotal quote: water finds a path of least resistance. So water will move based on volume, based on the terrain, based on what it has available to be able to find its lowest point. And often you find that this water runs off and goes down to our seas or rivers. So if there's always going to be flooding, the answer is going to be yes, there will be. But the role and responsibilities that we have is that we could reduce the impact of this flooding through this project and through our own individual actions.
Well,
recently, there was If I might just add,
Of course,
Kitan,
of course.
there was a weather pattern that passed a few days ago. Some pretty unexpected erratic weather. And there were some graphics coming soon after of individuals having to clean rivers filled with plastic bottles. Plastic bottles don't occur naturally in the environment.
Mm-hmm.
They must have gotten there somewhere. So we have to recognize that our individual actions contribute to a larger problem.
I think for a loaded question, sir, you've answered it very well, so I'm grateful for that. But Mr. Afonso, thank you very much this morning for sharing this information with us and for going into more details about the systems that are already in place. And I also am grateful at the fact that you emphasized the need for everyone, whether it be from a governmental level to residential level, a community level, that they have to do their part. So thank you very much for joining me on the program this morning, Mr. Afonso. To you and the rest of the team at the UNDP, keep up the excellent work and the work that you're doing to make Trinidad and Tobago, a bit better, and we're certainly appreciative of it. Take care, sir.
Thank you, Kitan. Have a good day.
You too. Mr. Stefan Afonso, Project Manager at the United Nations Development Program here in Trinidad and Tobago. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a quick break, and upon our return, we'll get into some more conversations this morning. Stay tuned.
People really want to know, what about me? Where do I fit?
Yes.
What is in the ride for me in terms of a better Trinidad and Tobago? And I'm pleased to shed some light on that.
The purpose of bail is to ensure your attendance at court. That's it. It is not punitive. It is not rehabilitative.
We, the police officers, we are professional, and we are here for whenever the survivor is ready to come forward.
We have the right to private and family life, the right to religious freedoms and beliefs and thoughts and expression. But these rights are not absolute. Certain rights can be limited.
The law is to govern the whole, it's for all of us in public.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
What's the best way to grab the attention of viewers?
Please exercise more patience. You have to be kidding me.
Doing what we do best.
I'll say at the very least it's a conspiracy of laziness against the people.
Join me, Keaton Shaw.
And me, Sean Michael Small, for Talking Point
weekdays from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
We go in depth on the trending issues and engage the most controversial newsmakers
as we get them to account to the people for their actions.
You can't go to the government with nothing. You can't go to cabinet with an empty hand, with a wish.
I'm glad that we're having this a sober, mature discussion.
In the present situation, I expect a continuation of the chaos.
Join us for the discussion, Mondays to Fridays,
only on WESN,
the content capital.
Welcome back to the program. It's not very often that you get to sit in the presence of royalty, and especially music royalty, and that's precisely the opportunity that I have this morning. Well-known dance band Louie and the Lynx, well, they present Transformation 4.0. Get this, a soca jazz concert at Central Bank Auditorium tomorrow. Yeah, it's happening tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen. The band will perform a varied blend of improvised music, highlighting some of the original compositions of its accomplished pianist and bandleader Dr. Louis Nurse, along with other popular contemporary selections. Well, this morning, as mentioned, I'm joined by royalty via Zoom, not in studio, but that's okay. Dr. Louis Nurse, a band leader and founder of Louie and the Lynx, is with us. Hello, sir. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, and thank you to Trinidad and Tobago.
Well, Transformation 4.0. Why was this conceptualized?
Well, the idea is, I've been playing since St. Mary's College in 1975. So that over the years, the band has transformed because the market has changed. When you look at COVID, what COVID did was flatten the market. Nobody went anywhere. Everybody was under curfew. And today, we have now re-energized the band with a younger group of players, and we are coming to the market with our original sound, which is what soca jazz is about. So the concept of the band is to show 45 years how the band can move and transform into a new sound that will be targeted towards the market of Trinidad and Tobago and the international market.
Well, I know that the band is firmly intent in exploring and by extension actually releasing this new genre that you're referring to as soca jazz. What is soca jazz?
Well, the idea of soca jazz is this. It happened to me when I was performing in London, and I was sitting there with a group of great foreign musicians. And what was interesting is they asked me, what am I playing? And I realized that I couldn't play like them. I had to play like me. And what we represent in the Caribbean, based on our language, based on our culture, based on the different influences that comes into our space, we produce music differently. So, for example, when you think about European music, you have waltz, you have tango, everything is geometric. Whereas in our music, the response, the dancing, it's all fluid. It's all what we call it, you listen and you respond. You're not into a geometric pattern. So soca jazz, soca is the Latin, soca is our Caribbean feel. And jazz now is what we would call Ramaji. It allows me and musicians to play and solo in our language, even though we may be playing a song that has a foreign composition, but you're playing in our language. So just like how, let's put it this way, soca music is 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, we're going down. However, it's built on the movement of the waist, the pelvic. So think about a pendulum that swings 1, 2, 3, 4. And in that pendulum, the musical plane space as a whole, it is not a point. So in that whole, you can move the melody at any point in the whole, and you still keep it in time. So it's an interesting thing for me because what happened on that day when they asked me what I was going to play? I'm in front of an audience of a lot of people. And they say, "You from the Caribbean?" I said, "Yes." And I played Tilly. You know that song, Tilly?
Yes, of course.
Wasn't interesting about that. It's ay, and she Tilly. Now, our musical form is not complicated. And so when I was able to solo on that, and they keep asking me, how do you play that calypso? How do you get that music to play like that? And I realized that we are onto something. We have something in the Caribbean. We have something in Trinidad that's different to what's in England. And that is what gives us our competitive advantage. And it gives us a brand that we can leave Trinidad and perform outside and share that particular approach to the music.
Well, this is very interesting and intriguing indeed. And from the time I heard soca jazz, my attention was fully upon precisely what it is. And you've just broken it down and analyzed it to science, which is quite amazing. But even though you have been able to break it down to science, from what I understand, based on what you've just said, this all came naturally to you because of your Trinbago roots.
Yes, because you see, we have to stop looking outside and look within ourselves to find where creativity is. Now, what has happened with the onset of technology, the drum machines and the samples and these type of things, sample keyboards and sample drums, and that the music you're listening to for a while in our country has been virtual music, techno music that has sound but no soul, music that has beats but the rhythm is constructed by a computer. So when somebody says that I'm playing at 169 beats a minute, I don't want to call the name of songs, but I want you to think about power soca. It's up there, 169 beats a minute. It's beyond your heart rate. Mm-hmm. So you're literally running behind the truck in inverted commas. When the natural music, when you listen to the music now, you would hear songs like Engine Room. I want to use that as an example.
Yeah.
Engine Room is a much slower song, but it reaches you because it's in your space, it's in your natural time. Mm-hmm. So as we move back towards live music, I think that's what I want people to appreciate, that this concert, there's no sampling. It's live music, live musicians playing with emotional vitality, playing with professional excellence, but most importantly, communicating the Caribbean feel to Caribbean people and beyond. That kind of thing. Because one person with a keyboard or a computer could create a whole song.
Yes.
And with ChatGPT, you could tell ChatGPT to create a song for you.
Dr. Nis, let me ask you. I don't mean to digress too much, but in your opinion, I mean, you've been in this industry for over 40 years. You've played across the world, and now you're saying we must look within ourselves. We must not always look outside for inspiration. I will never, ever in any way discriminate or even ill speak of our talent locally. However, are you of the opinion that that finesse of instrument playing, natural music, as you've just said, a lot of things are now computerized, technology is being utilized to create music, that finesse of instrument playing, is it something that we are slowly losing or have lost here in TNT?
The truth is, it's a competitive line. Some people say we have to accept technology. And I want to make the point clearly, we are not rejecting technology because technology creates convenience. However, technology is not creativity. And that's the point I want people to get. So what if you notice now, there are a lot of live bands are coming back on the road. In Carnival, we've had some live musicians. There are lots of little concerts that are taking place. So I would say, yes, technology challenged us. Yes, technology is a competitive partner in the entertainment space. However, technology is being challenged now that more and more people are getting into playing for example, I was judging Pan in the 21st Century. And it was a great privilege to work with Pan Trinbago on that project because I had the opportunity to listen to 36 bands all over Trinidad and Tobago. And these are 36 bands made up of a minimum of 35 to 50 players. So let's think about how many musicians. And you had arrangers, you have pan-tuners. So what I'm saying is there is a resurgence of live music, a resurgence of people finding their creativity, either in playing a drum set, playing an iron, playing a pan, and the movement to create more pan spaces and more activities. But at Napa, for example, at Queen's Hall and the one in South in our Bmobile, if you look at the amount of activities taking place, I would say it's not, we are back on the rise. Right? Yes, we are challenged because we always find things always sound better when the listen come from outside. But more and more people are finding, and then we have COSTAT, we have the UTT, and these are the institutions that are producing great musicians. So I think that we are challenged, but we are coming up to the challenge.
Well,
that's what I see.
No, I think that's excellent that you're recognizing that, and I will fully support that. Getting back to Transmission 4.0, this new genre of soca jazz, before we get into your compositions, for greater understanding, how would you describe the signature sound as of the band Louis and the Lynx?
The signature sound. Now, I don't want to use signature SONG because I've been composing a lot of
it's SOUND.
Right.
Signature sound, yes.
Right. The signature sound is the piano. That is where it is. I'm blessed to be able to be proficient on different instruments. However, the piano is my love, it's my passion, it's my place and space in the orchestra. So the music revolves around the piano. And part of the reason is the piano is a complete instrument. That's what people must understand. You can play a piano by itself. You don't need anything. Right? So when you put the arrangement out, you are now sharing a musical conversation. And we have, in that team, we have Tambo Gwindi. He's one of the master percussionists, where he plays with so many different percussion things, putting songs like little lights into the piece. We have Claude Griffith, who is a strong spiritual drummer. Now, a spiritual drummer is different from a rhythm drummer. A rhythm drummer holds the timing. A spiritual drummer is able to bring emotional vitality to the piece by playing the right sound on the drum. Right? Then we have backup vocals, Khadija, Jeremiah, and Shiri's Collie Mo, and these are girls who are putting that vocal line in the back there. So, and then we have the brass section, a group of 5 great brass players under the command of Mr. A.J. St. Louis. A.J. St. Louis is a keyboard player who plays the saxophone. And I'm just trying to show you the depth of talent. So when they come around, they all circle around the piano and the piano as the center or the pillar of that. So the signature sound of Louis and the Lynx is the piano.
I'm actually glad. Go on, Dr. Nils, my apologies.
And the other point I want to tell you is that the piano is a percussion instrument. And that's what people miss. The piano is, you have to press a note where a hammer hits a string. Whereas on a steel pan, you hit the pan and you get the sound. Both of them are in the same concept of music. So when I'm playing, for example, with a pan player, both of us are playing percussion. And soca jazz understands that because I am now not trying to play the piano like a violin. I'm trying to play the piano. And as a percussion instrument, I'm able to get sound from knocking. See, so the same way on a pan, you knock and you get a tone or a pitch or a note. It's the same thing on the piano. So
Dr.
the piano is aligned to our culture.
Well, that actually is quite an amazing statement you've made there, to align to our culture. And I don't think many people would ever think such. However, in the signature sound of the band, as you mentioned, is the piano. Have you yourself composed original pieces of soca jazz, of which people will hear tomorrow?
Yes, yes. I have some pieces. One is called Dancing in the Rain. That Dancing in the Rain is something that conceptually, as a young man, I always loved to dance in the rain. I grew up in St. Joseph, and I'm very proud of being a member of the St. Joseph community. But we had a gutter in, and when the rains came, I was happy to go outside and stand up under the gutter in and enjoy the rain.
I still enjoy doing that, by the way.
That's right. So now I put that into a jazz piece, Dancing in the Rain, and how do one enjoy it? And you use the music now to capture that idea, and that's what I was singing to your pieces. I have another piece called that one is piano. Mm-hmm. This one is called Maria's Theme, and it's a full brass section, full brass playing, but it's a love song because it's a song that, now what happens is when I get an idea, I'm able to take that idea and transform that idea into a musical piece. And then I take that musical piece as a single piano song and hand it across to the arranger, who puts the whole band, who writes it for the band. Now I have solo albums that are on Amazon and Spotify and those type of things as solo pianist. Mm-hmm. So what happens is these pieces, Angel's Fire, these are the names of the song, Angel's Fire, Angel's Guidance. You notice another one called Waiting on the Man. Because these are things that happens. You are sitting at home, you are dressed as a lady, and the guy's supposed to pick you up at 8 o'clock. It's 8:45. How do you feel? So I wrote a song, Waiting on the Man. And I try to capture, not in words. The words are very sporadic, mm-hmm. because our band is about music. You see, what has happened with words, people look for the messages and then the music gets lost. But as a musician, we are putting the music first and the voices come behind. That's one of the differences with soca jazz. We're not trying to have a man sing in front and tell you to raise up your hand and put it down. We're not doing that. We are taking the concept and walking you through that connectivity and communicating to you an idea. Now I notice it sounds called like angels. Uh-huh. And that's it's a strange thing for me, but I can tell you, I believe in angels. I believe that inspiration comes through me from another place. That my creativity is a gift from another place. Mm. So I am very, very humbled, and I'm always grateful to hear the music in my head and to hear the guidance of, call it the inspirational beings, that helps me to go to the piano and produce music that people enjoy.
Dr. Nurse, you've been in this business for years, decades, over 40 years, as you mentioned at the start of this interview. It goes back to your time in St. Mary's College. But how is it? I mean, you've mentioned that it's not necessarily difficult for you to embrace technology, but your appreciation and understanding of music will always take you back to instrument playing from an individual level. How is it that you've been able to remain constant in a society that tastes are always evolving, that ears are always listening to something new, and even where an appreciation for music, as you mentioned, or the finesse of instrument playing, seems to be waning?
Well, the answer to that is that's why we have Transformation 4.0, because I am able to play in the now, but play in the now in a style, in an interpretation that brings the experience, education, and expertise on the instrument to bear. So we are not stuck in a dimension. We are evolving with the music, and the younger people in the band, that's their will. So I am, as a leader, I am leading from the back, not from the front, because I am able to let them bring their time and their understanding into the music, which gives it. We like something called Kalu, right? Kalu is a nice mix. It's a nice, or pilau. It's a nice mix. So that pilau idea or that Kalu idea is that the younger people will bring their understanding in, and it allows the band as a sound not only to be relevant, but also to be creating continuously, even though the eras are changing.
And Transformation 4.0, which is being held at Central Bank Auditorium tomorrow, showtime from 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. What are the emotions that you hope to evoke within your audience, especially from the young members of the audience who will be present?
Well, that's a great question. And the truth is, I want people to be happy. The music is about fellowship, it's about happiness, it's about team togetherness, it's about unity. It's a moment away from the negativity. Our music is not to have you stressed, it's to have you comfortable, but more importantly, have you enjoying the moment of when I went to one of those formal concerts in Royal Albert Hall with an orchestra, and I couldn't understand. You go to one of these violin, these big orchestras, and you realize that music transforms you. Good music connects with your soul, connects with your spirit, but also connects with your good sense. And what we want people to do is bring the children, because it's a family event. It's a place and a space where you can bring your children, let them see good musicians play, let them see young people play. We have a young man, Dimitri Francis, who's coming from the community of Mova. All right, and I met him some years ago. He was in Standard 5, and I was doing a little session, and he's interested in the pan. And today he's what, 17 years old, and he plays pan very well. And he said to me, Dr. Nelson, you inspired me. And I said to him, come and play my concert. So they're going to see a young man who is a young man, who has made a choice.
You're giving opportunity to younger.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's what we want people to see. We want people to see the future. We want people to see where we are going in a positive Trinidad and Tobago.
Dr. Louis, we only have about about 30 seconds left. Transformation 4.0. Are tickets still available?
Yes, 290-2950 is your booking number. 290-2950. However, tickets will be available at the box office from 12 o'clock tomorrow. But because it's limited seats, I'm inviting people to call 290-2950 and book their seat. You don't have to pay for a ticket online, but they can book their seats.
Wonderful. Dr. Louis Nurse, band leader of Louis and the Links, thank you very much for joining this morning. I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. There's a lot more that we can get into. Unfortunately, time does not permit this morning, but I look forward to future conversations. And thank you for giving the younger generations an opportunity. Thank you for keeping music, especially from the aspect of the natural sounds of instruments, keeping that alive. And furthermore, for everything that you've done, and everything that you are doing. Congratulations, sir. All the best in your concert tomorrow. We certainly look forward to it.
Yes. Thank you very much, my brother.
All the best, sir.
All the best.
There you have it, musical royalty on AM Prime this morning. Louis and the Lynx, Transformation 4.0, the genre soca jazz will be gifted to the audience tomorrow. 290-2950 to book your seat at the Central Bank Auditorium. If you're unable to do so, there are limited number of seats. If you're unable to do so, tickets will be available from the box office tomorrow from 12 p.m. Showtime 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. Do not miss this, ladies and gentlemen. We take a break for news on the hour. When we return, the conversations continue on AM Prime.
Here is the WESN News on the Hour. I am Sira Ali. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Trinity College Mocha head prefect speaks out. WePay founder launched live events company. TTPS seeks forfeiture of over 2.5 million seized in currency. Regionally, Saharan dust affecting some Caribbean islands. Now for the details. As the issue of hairstyles and dress policy in schools continue, following the incident at Trinity Mocha, one past student at the school believes the school is to blame for the debacle. Head prefect for Trinity College for the past 2 years, Jovan Henry Ali, who also graduated on Tuesday, was quite vocal on what he says really happened at the graduation. He maintained the issue is about right and wrong, not racism. He says that the school failed to enforce the rules pre- and post-COVID, and this contributed significantly to what occurred. He stated that at registration into the school, parents and students are informed of the rules of the school, including those that govern dress and grooming and its stance on long hair. WePay founder Aldwin Wayne officially launched Live Events Incorporated, an entertainment company. Live Events will specialize in concert funding, ticketing, payments, and management during the BET Awards red carpet event held in downtown Los Angeles on Sunday night. The company was founded by Wayne and the chief marketing officer of the WePay group, Kibwe McGann. In a media release, the directors of Live Events Incorporated said it aims to fill a void in the entertainment market by delivering high-quality concerts and experiences to the Caribbean region. The WePay executive said the new events management company was inspired by the success of their previous venture, WeFet. WeFet was a carnival concert held in Jamaica in April featuring soca artists Marshall Montano, Bunji Garling, Nyla Blackman, and Skinny Fabulous. Forfeiture proceedings commenced against 3 suspects after Director of Public Prosecutions Roger Gaspard SC concluded that there was sufficient evidence to proceed under the provisions of the Proceeds of Crime Act. According to police reports, on 9th and 11th of June 2021, a joint operation was conducted by members of the Financial Investigations Branch and the Customs and Excise Division, where the officers searched the premises of Varun Arjun, Shelly Ann Ramlochan, and Videsh Maharaj at Gandhi Village, Debe. During the searches, a large quantity of cash totaling 2,146,103 CC currency, 58,194 US currency, 1,265 Canadian currency, and 245 EC currency was found, along with a large quantity of uncustomed alcohol and a quantity of pepper spray at various locations within the house. A taser and 2 firearms with 28 rounds of 9mm ammunition were also found in a vehicle with a quantity of cash. Shelly Ann Ramlochan was charged with possession of firearms for the purpose of trafficking, possession of ammunition, and possession of a prohibited weapon on June 13, 2021 by PC Woodley of the FBI. Videsh Maharaj was charged with possession of prohibited weapons for the purpose of trafficking in relation to the pepper spray on June 13, 2023. Regionally, people with allergies and respiratory issues are being advised to take the necessary precautions as the Saharan dust is affecting some Caribbean islands. The Antigua and Barbuda Meteorological Services, in its latest air quality update, says from Wednesday night until Monday for Antigua and Barbuda, the air quality is down to moderate levels as a result of particulate matters 2.5 and 10, associated with a fresh surge in the Saharan dust. The threat of health problems is expected to be elevated for mainly unusually sensitive people, such as asthmatics, and could potentially cause them limited health impacts. Well, that's news to the hour on WESN. I am Sira Ali. Thanks for watching.
Every morning after AM Prime, I actually read the newspapers from cover to cover. And many a times there are columns that are really, it just catches my attention. But there are some columns that you want to expand further on. And fortunately, at times, we are able to get in contact with the columnist. One such is Mr. Steve Alvarez. He is a project manager. You've seen him many a times on this program, and he's joining me once more following my reading of his column issued yesterday. Do we really care about the issues that matter? Mr. Alvarez is with us via Zoom. Good morning, sir. I think you're muted, sir. I think we've lost you.
I'm not muted, though.
Excellent. No, we can hear you now.
Okay.
Good morning, Mr. Alvarez. Thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, good morning, Trinidad and Tobago. Good morning, everyone.
Why does it seem as it's very complex or impossible for government to manage simple things? It's a loaded question, but it's a question that is really a synopsis of the conversation this morning.
Well, I think, let me start, Keaton, by just going back a bit to see how the sad situation that we are in at the moment. We have a situation where people are motivated by money and motivated by personal wealth and personal growth. So, for example, in the politics, you're hearing a lot of people saying, I will fix this. I am the one. I am the best person to be prime minister and so on. And we have not evolved into a country of people that says, listen, we have issues to deal with. Let's deal with these issues and let's fix them. So the simple things like I'll give you an example. WASA can say tomorrow that every time you repair a leak, that you walk with a little bit of asphalt and a plate compactor and you smooth back the road. That could be a policy. That can happen immediately. But because no one cares, because it doesn't matter, the contractor would come and he would just dig up the road and then he'd leave a pile of dirt that the cars would go into, and then they would damage the pipe again and it will have a leak again in the same place. It's just simple things that we can do that we just don't care about. And you know what has been a pet peeve of mine, because I always believe that I cannot imagine for a moment why we'll be pumping water all through the country when we could just put tanks and have and reservoirs and so on, and just have gravity feed the communities like every developed country in the world. So the simple things that we can fix don't matter. And they just don't care. They're like desilting the rivers and stuff like that. People don't care because the motivation is for power and for self-growth and so on. And everywhere you turn, everywhere, and especially now that we are into a local government election, you're seeing this emphasis on Bacchanal and the emphasis on people talking about themselves and how great they are and how great their party is, and nothing about the country and nothing about the average man. And that's the crux of the whole thing. Nobody cares about the person. Nobody cares about the businesses that support the people that live in the country. So all of the policies that you see are coming down the road are done haphazardly without thinking for a moment that, for example, a simple thing like re-registering your company every year, your annual returns, making that simple would encourage people to do business, but nobody cares about that. They make it as complicated and as difficult as possible. That's just the nature of the governance of Trinidad and Tobago.
This attitude of not caring, this attitude of not wanting to listen, how much of a costly mistake is this to Trinidad and Tobago society?
Well, it's a costly mistake to the people, again, because you see, if you look at what's happening when the government is not doing what it's supposed to be doing, one turns to the opposition and say, well, perhaps, whether it's Trinidad or the United States or any other country, you look at the opposition and say, let me see what is the alternative. And unfortunately, in Trinidad, our main opposition party is going down the very same road that the government is going down. They rely on bacchanal and stories that may or may not be true, or tinged with some level of racism and so on, just to get their core supporters excited and so on to come out and vote and so on. It's not about what are we offering in terms of solutions. And I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. In local government election is coming up on August 14th. And local government is perhaps the most important aspect in terms of management of a country. Local government directly interacts with the people in the community, whether it's they clean their drains, whether it's just fixing a bridge, whether it's painting a road sign and so on. But so now this is an excellent opportunity for people to go into the communities and show that the playgrounds are not being kept, the lights are not being changed, the pavilions are falling apart, look what you're doing to our sporting thing, the beaches are not being cleaned. And you can bring so many issues in local government that you can say, listen, as a community now, under our party, we can fix this if you put this councillor, that councillor, that councillor in place. But instead, what you're getting is people talking about who crossed the floor and who party is more bacchanalish and who is, there's a whole lot of story about, oh, we are now joining up with this one, so we're going to be stronger here, and we're going to give them real thunder here, and that kind of stuff. Nothing to do with how you're going to improve local government. This is just the fundamentals. I had a meeting last night where a lot of very intelligent people were talking and given serious consideration of how do we deal with food security. And we were actually commending, I don't know if you're aware of this, Keaton, but the Moruga Hill rice is now available.
Yes, online, yeah.
And we were talking about expanding our products or agricultural products to meet international standards, and in so doing, we're going to be feeding our own self. We talk about how we can have just enough organic sugar to join that organic sugar market and to also use that molasses and so on to augment our rum industry and so on. So it's serious food production, and how you get employment and economic activity stemming from agriculture is a major aspect of how the country can go forward. But nobody wants to talk about that. If you started like we're doing now, we're talking about things that matter. If we start talking about how we can systematically go through the various roads that we have in the country. And let me tell you, this is a small country. It's 70 miles by 40 miles. So Trinidad is, and Tobago is also another small, much smaller. So in terms of our roadway, we don't have a whole lot of roads. And we can fix every piece of road so you can drive through these places with ease. And if you would ever go to places like Barapur or Rio Claro or Moruga or so on, the roads are horrendous. And that's another area that we could talk about, that we can fix overnight. These are the things that require years and years of planning and billions of dollars. But what it requires is a government and a people that are constantly looking at what is wrong with our country and how do we fix that. And if the government isn't doing it, and more so, the population isn't doing it, doesn't care about it. You only hear people quarreling about the fact that Wasta just dig up a hole on St. Lucian Road right at the corner, and they repaired the pipe and they leave a bump there. So now people on a blind corner have to try to maneuver around the repairs that Wasta made.
Mr. Alvarez,
but nobody complains.
Well, what's interesting is that a most recent experience is that there was a piece of road in, it's actually the Paja Road in Tunapuna that needed paving for years. Now, of course, with local government elections right around the corner, it was done a couple of weeks ago. Following it being paved, the very next morning, it was paved overnight, the very next morning, there were 3 leaks in the road, which means the leaks existed before, but they paved over the leaks. WASA came a couple of days later to repair the leaks. Of course, a brand new piece of road is now plagued by further potholes. So you kind of sometimes wonder what's the logic or thinking behind that. That's just another example. But you mentioned something there about the citizens and the community not doing anything about it. Are we accomplices to our own demise in the sense that we actually want this kind of politics? We actually appreciate this kind of politics because we too support, quote unquote, the bacchanal.
Well, I mean, it's the excitement that we get from the bacchanal. We sort of sit down and we hear, when we hear these people talking about the bacchanal, that's when we get all tuned in. Once we hear people talking about economic issues and agricultural issues and road repairs and stuff like that, and land erosion and landslides and so on, it's kind of boring. It is not, and that is because really the structure of government, and that is perhaps why some parties did not participate in local government election, because the structure of government in its present format makes local government a farce. And let me take a little minute to explain this to you. If your local government councillors and your local government structure is totally dependent on your central government for funding and central government for whatever activity you need to do, then you don't have a local government. You really have a central government that is using another arm of their party to do what is required. So as a result of that, people in the communities have a feeling of helplessness. So if you have a leak, and you would know this, Keaton, if you have a leak in front of your house, you have to call WASA headquarters in St. Joseph, because you cannot go to the WASA person in your community and say, listen, we have a leak here, and that person lives in the community and could come and fix it, and then they would bill WASA and so on. The structure for management of our country does not exist. So that what we inherited, for example, where police, we have, I think, 80-something police stations, and those were constructed in communities so that in every community in Trinidad and Tobago, there could be a structured police patrol. And that's why those 80-something police stations were there. So that in areas where it was heavily populated, like Belmont and downtown Port of Spain, where you have Besson Street Police Station and Belmont Police Station and St. James Police Station, you had more, just so that enough policemen could be on patrol in those communities. When you do not have this sort of responses to these things, because the structure does not support it and you're depending on central government for everything, that's when you have a problem. And that's the problems that we face in Trinidad and Tobago. We have structures that has everything goes back to central government. And if you really want to take it further, in central government, everything goes back to the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. Because this is the Prime Minister that makes the decisions with his cabinet, and then they decide what's happening. So the country is really de facto ruled by one person.
Mr. Alvarez, in your opinion, with regards to and you mentioned this in your column as well, that every day you hear citizens making suggestions, you hear voices, making suggestions, as you have made yourself this morning. In fact, on previous occasions, you've also mentioned WASA with respect to utilizing our resources to ensure that gravity does its part in water distribution. Why is it that such voices are ignored? Is it this continued hunger for power of which you've elaborated on this morning?
Well, it's a little more complex than that. It's take, for example, with flooding, the downtown area is flooded, especially the Sealots area is flooded every time you have a half an hour of rain. There's a retention pond that was created under the previous administration on South Key. that retention pond has now been filled with silt and so on, and it's no longer a retention pond, it's just a grassland right now. It will take a few trucks and an excavator one day to clear the retention pond and deal with flooding. Immediately stop the flooding that you have on the end of East Port of Spain by South Key area, because it worked for years while the retention pond was cleared and so on. So you never had the flooding in across Abattoir Road and so on in the market and so on. But if you were to ask the city corporation to do that, or you were to ask a contractor to do that, and it happens within 1 or 2 days, there's not the room for the level of corruption that and feedback of money going to this one and that one. So much of what we do is dependent on who benefits on the long run, and that's the problem that we have as a country. So we know the solutions, we know the problems, of course, because we face the problems every day. But just dealing with those solutions in a pragmatic manner would mean that we may, in so doing, circumvent others from getting the little kickbacks and money that going back to whoever is giving out these contracts and so on. And therefore, everything remains stagnated until things are put in place so someone can benefit indirectly from whatever projects have to be done. But retention ponds are a perfect example of what is required to deal with our flooding situation. And of course, we're doing nothing about it. And that's just one of the many solutions that other people have come across. There are lots of people have come across and said, listen, this is how we deal with agriculture. This is how we deal with our water distribution. This is how we deal with flooding. And so many fantastic opinions have come across with how to deal with criminal activity in our communities, how to deal with our young people and offer them hope and offer them a chance to see themselves just living for the next, say, 15, 20 years and having a family and so on. That sort of inspiration of hope in our communities, to do that would require change in the law.
Why is it that we are accepting of all these excuses? You mentioned that the excitement from the Bacchanal is appealing to us. But it seems to me that we are constantly accepting of excuses, even to the extent that many a times we go out of our way to justify excuses. And it goes back to the question again, accomplices to our own demise.
Well, Keaton, there's a fantastic passage I came across in this book that I'm reading by Dennis Mahabir, and he was saying that it was a conversation, and in the 40s people weren't very politically correct about the terms that they use. So there were the N words and the C words and so on. But he was saying that there was an argument in the book where people were saying, do you want the N people to rule us, or do you want the C people to rule us? And he made the argument that, listen, unless we see ourselves as citizens of Trinidad and Tobago and not as Indians and Africans, unless we see ourselves as one people living in a nation that have to build a nation, we are going to have a problem. And he says in this book, perhaps we're not ready for governance. Perhaps the colonialists should rule us for a bit longer. And that was in 1940. We're now talking 50 years after. And we both know nobody wants to talk about it because nobody wants to come across as being racial or dealing with the race card. But one of the major impediments to progress in Trinidad and Tobago is that we see ourselves as a sect and not as a country. Because if we saw ourselves as a country, we'll have our best engineers, our best architects, our best doctors, our best lawyers, our best professionals in the police service emerge. But instead, we have all kind of talk about manipulation of lists and manipulation of the selection processes and so on, because we're not seeking our best from among us, because we don't see ourselves as a country. We see ourselves as a sect of people either following one group or the other, or distrusting, perhaps more importantly, distrusting of the other, which is really silly, because at the end of the day, we all live here, we all travel along the same roads, we all eat in the same restaurants, we all support the same sporting teams and so on. It's only in the politics, that we see this division, and it's happening now again, that because one person, for example, may leave one party to go to the next one, is seen as a traitor to the sect. And those things are the subliminal messages they're subliminal, but they're real. And if we don't accept the fact that they're real, then we are really pulling the blinds in front of our eyes. We have to accept that these are the realities that we deal with as a country. Every time we talk about a problem, we look at where, so okay, so there's a lot of problem of flooding and potholes in Barrackpore. I have actually heard people say, well, Barrackpore don't count. Why? Because Barrackpore don't support the government. You see? So you don't see, there's no situation where you look at a country and say, listen, how do we fix our country? It's how do we fix the sect? And when it comes down to not only how do we fix the sect, it actually goes down to how do we fix the self.
Mr. Alvarez, I think given the time that we have, we're actually running out of time. I think that's the perfect way to actually conclude this morning's discussion. Your column is very, very intriguing. I'm glad we were able to expand on this discussion, and I would encourage viewers, if you get the opportunity, it was actually published in yesterday's Trinidad and Tobago Newsday newspaper. Mr. Alvarez, thank you very much for making the time to join us this morning. Very quickly.
And I would just want to admonish the people of Trinidad and Tobago that, listen, this now a lot of years, decades have passed since our independence. Let us come together as one people. Let us put Trinidad and Tobago first. Let's, for once and for all, seriously get rid of all the underpinnings of racism that exists in our society, and let's see each other as citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. If we do that, every single problem that we face, we can solve, because we can do it together. We have the people, we have the personnel, we have the love for each other. We just have to not take on those people who are continuing to seek to divide us for their own selfish gains. But
do we have the hope?
We definitely have the hope. And I'm telling you, as we go forward, we have to come together as one people driven by the hope for better tomorrows.
Thank you very much, Mr. Alvarez, again once more for joining me on the program. Very much appreciative of it, and do have a good day. All the very best.
Thank you, Keaton. Thank you, Trinidad and Tobago. Have a good day.
Take care. Mr. Steve Alvarez, project manager, joining me this morning on AM Prime. Once more, if you get the opportunity, I implore you to read his column that was published in yesterday's Newsday. Do we really care about the issues that matter? We were able to expand on that particular column this morning, and I'm immensely appreciative of such. Well, it's been a very good week, first week back out after being off for 2 weeks. And certainly enjoyed this morning's conversation, and I hope you did, and I'm wishing you a grand weekend ahead. But before I bid you farewell, just a few words. It's not very often that you come across individuals within the workplace, colleagues, that turn into friends, that turn into brothers. And that's exactly what WESN was gifted when our colleague, our brother, Joshua Riley, walked through the doors. Little did we know the impact that he was going to have on all of us. And well, I'm saying this because Joshua Riley is moving on today as he actually pilots his last edition of AM Prime. It's never goodbye, actually, because those doors will always be open, and I certainly look forward to him walking through them again one day. But for everything that our brother has done, whether it be in piloting programs from very early on in the morning to the very late in the afternoon, whether it be through just his sheer personality that has always somehow found energy, even in relieving the stress and lags throughout the day. I'll tell you what, it's going to be a quiet place without him. Joshua Riley, you've certainly made an impact, a positive impact upon all of us here at WSN. we're entirely grateful for your contribution, and more so, we're entirely grateful for your friendship and for your brotherhood. I wish you all the very best, and I want to thank you and simply say, my friend, continue being the gentleman that you are, continue being the great young man that you are, and just remember one thing: WESN will always be your home, and you'll always, always be a part of this family. And this comes from absolutely everybody here, more specifically, the team that is here from very early on in the morning, Ryan Gomez-Burke, Mile, myself, my brother, all the very best, and thank you. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for AM Prime. Wishing you a grand day ahead and a great weekend, maybe a restful one, as the election fever continues to hit us. And I've always told you, always be mature, always be responsible, and if you get the opportunity, take just a moment out of your day to do some self-reflection, because it goes a long way. Anyway, should things go good, I really hope that they do. I'll see you again on Monday morning from 6 a.m. But until then, bye-bye.
WESN.
Coming up on Nicole Larson Live.
It was in 2018 where something happened. I got a call. It was the third day. He said, let me tell you what you're going to hear tomorrow. Tomorrow you're going to hear that they have found him. He has floated to the top. He would be decomposed. He would be smelling awful. And I'm listening to him on the phone because he is just giving me the cold, hard facts.
Even though it takes time, time alone will not heal. You cannot heal what you do not acknowledge.
The unconscious socializing is what we need to check, because I was just doing it to avoid being home. I don't want to be in the bedroom because it's not the same anymore.
You can be happy, hurting, and healing all at the same time.
I choose to have gratitude. My soul is safe with Christ. I choose to be, yeah, the grateful one.
An encore of Nicole Larson Live, living in victory every day. Airing on WESN, the content capital, on Sunday, July 2nd at 8 p.m. Don't you miss it.
What's the best way to grab the attention of viewers?
Please exercise more patience. You have to be kidding me.
Doing what we do best.
I'll say at the very least it's a conspiracy of laziness against the people.
Join me, Keaton Shaw.
And me, Sean Michael Small, for Talking Point.
Weekdays from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
We go in depth on the trending issues and engage the most controversial newsmakers
as we get them to account to the people for their actions.
You can't go to the government with nothing. You can't go to cabinet with an empty hand, with a wish.
I'm glad that we're having this a sober, mature discussion.
In the present situation, I expect a continuation of the chaos.
Join us for the discussion, Mondays to Fridays,
only on WESN,
the content capital.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
I'm Sean Michael Small, and we are WESN, the content capital.
people really want to know, what about me? Where do I fit?
Yes.
What is in the ride for me in terms of a better Trinidad and Tobago? And I'm pleased to shed some light on that.
The purpose of bail is to ensure your attendance at court. That's it. It is not punitive, it is not rehabilitative.
We, the police officers, we are professional, and we are here for whenever the survivor is ready to come forward.
We have the right to private and family life, the right to religious freedoms and beliefs and thoughts and expression. But these rights are not absolute. Certain rights can be limited.
The law is to govern the whole, it's for all of us in public.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Sight, Thursdays at 11:30 a.m., only on WESN, Content Capital.
As Kevin Hart would say, damn! Why we have so much minors out on the streets? There's an after-school program happening there. Side women, don't give up. You know, you can become queen one day. Those companies who are currently looking for their money that they deposited in the Silicon Valley Bank, it's not there. ChatGPT is basically the start of Terminator. Our relationship with the colonial powers is like a relationship with a little bit of abuse that people like to stay in. And we remember how that was. Put in $100 and later tonight, you'll get back 3,000. I promise you. I promise you not. Did you rent an accent while you were across there?
When you're in the proximity of Donald Trump, somehow you adopt his aura.
First of all, I thought that $200 would be more than enough. It's $200.
I was a goat farmer. I had 3 goats. Yeah, 3 goats and 1 cow. You know the name?
No, I don't.
Right, Messi, LeBron, and Cristiano Ronaldo. And the cow named Haaland.
I love Trinidad and Tobago, you know.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sport?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing now, Andre.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the red, white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
I am Sule A. Joseph, and we are WESN, Content Capital. Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, The Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
Every day, we communicate through stories. Stories of ourselves, our challenges, our goals, our experiences, and our aspirations. Storytelling is an art that we have mastered. WESN Film Studios comprises a collaborative team of experts with extensive industry experience locally, regionally, and internationally. The ability of your business to successfully communicate with your preferred audience depends on the strength of the stories you tell. Your vision should be communicated in a high-quality, professional and creative way. From concept to post-production, advertising to film, multi-camera productions, live events, streaming and virtual conferencing, we are WESN Film Studio. Let your own unique voice be heard and your vision realized. Call us today at 628-5835 for your next production.
We are WESN, the premier platform for Caribbean content. WESN, covering West, East, South, and North. WESN, we entertainment, sports, and news. WESN, available on Greendot 7, Amplia 118, Airlink 17, Bmobile 107, Digicel 21, ICNTT 105, and Flow 110. Connect with us at WESNCC or stream online at www.wesncc.com. WESN, your premier platform for Caribbean content.
By what means? Do they completely leave out the migration element from the final conclusions? Do they include it but say a couple of countries don't agree, which is not a good look if they do that? Or do they just, as I say, leave it out completely and leave it to the President of the Council, Charles Michel, to publish his own separate conclusions or press release? So it's a bit of a mess, as you can tell. We're still waiting this afternoon for a resolution.
Armin Georgian reporting from Brussels. Now, breaking nearly half a century of tradition, America's Supreme Court ruled that it's unconstitutional for universities to consider race in admissions. Known as affirmative action, the approach was intended to help people of color that were underrepresented. In a 6-3 decision, the court's conservative justices sided with plaintiffs who had argued that such policies at Harvard and the University of North Carolina discriminated against whites and Asians. After the ruling, U.S. President Joe Biden slammed it, declaring that the Supreme Court was, quote, not a normal court. Take a listen to what else he had to say.
And I just find it, I don't know how to express it, find it just so out of sorts with the basic value system of the American people. And I think that across the board, the vast majority of the American people don't agree with a lot of the decisions this court is making.
And some people wondering if the Supreme Court wanted to be colorblind, then why did it not address legacy admissions? Those are the admissions of a student based on being the relative of an alumna. Critics say this is a form of discrimination disproportionately favoring white students. The UN Security Council is set to vote to end a decade-long peacekeeping mission in Mali. This after the West African country's military junta abruptly asked for the 13,000-strong force to leave without delay. Catherine Kadir-Clifford reports.
Historic monuments have been rebuilt, and economic activity is starting to pick up. In Timbuktu in central Mali, the jihadist threat still looms. But some locals are already celebrating the likely departure of UN peacekeeping troops, known as MINUSMA.
MINUSMA is there to maintain peace and stability, but we see that it has failed in every respect. MINUSMA has failed. We have not noticed a considerable change in the situation in relation to peace and stability.
Not all residents feel this way.
I think that the impact MINUSMA has in Mali is indisputable. It's visible. It is visible.
Some cite economic arguments in support of the UN's presence. MINUSMA employs thousands of Malians, for example, as translators, drivers and analysts. It was set up in 2013 after an armed offensive by jihadist groups from the north of the country. But since then, its scope has been drastically reduced by the ruling military, now supported by the Russian